We love to row on the track here, whatever your level, against the best in the world. And, well, the reigning world champion, the reigning Henley Diamond Sculls champion here, just beneath us on the right of our picture, it's Oliver Zeidler from Germany, and he is up against Liam Smit from the University of British Columbia in Canada. So Zeidler on the right and Smit on the left.
I mean, this is what we talk about, isn't it? We've got an absolutely stunningly successful single sculler from Germany, with all the titles and recognition you would want, and you couldn't race against him on the Henley course. And the brilliant thing is, you sit level on the start line, and we'll see that athlete from British Columbia just taking it on as much. How long can you hold on to a champion like Ollie Zeidler?
Well, Smit is doing pretty well to hold on to Zeidler. We're about 300 or 400 metres down the course here, just past the barrier marker. And Zeidler, lower stroke rate, that kind of enormous wingspan he's got from, you know, the physique of a swimmer, which is what he was when he started out his career. He switched over to sculling, but he's up against Liam Smit, who grew up in South Africa, a soccer player, rugby player, athlete, and swimmer himself as well. Now a cyclist too. So these are two multi-sports people bringing everything they know from those different sports. But look at this. How Zeidler strides along in the single. It's quite something to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, we talk about just, you know, the smaller boats, sometimes you get more check and more bounce and more movement of the end of the boat. And Ollie Zeidler just holds it very level, very steady. It's very efficient way of rowing, despite the size and the sort of physical bulk that he has.
So Kath, you obviously have huge experience as a sculler, and we've seen some of the quads struggling in the middle of the course here. It looks like the singles are actually having it a bit easier. They're coping a bit better with the conditions. Is that a fair thing to say? Is it just the experience of the athletes, or is it easier in a single to control things?
I don't know about easier to control. I think we are seeing two really very classy athletes coming down the course. I think that definitely helps. But also, you know, we have seen the boats with 8 blades going on and sort of crashing around in those waves and those wind, and there's more things that can go wrong. So when you're in a sort of big sculling boat or a big eight-oared sweep boat, there's a lot of things that could potentially be impacted. Here, you know, there's one person in each boat, 2 oars, they can be controlled probably slightly easier.
So here we are down the middle of the course here. Zeidler retains his advantage, but he's not creeping away anymore over Smit. He may be just, you know, conserving his energy for the next day. As we said, he's the reigning champion here at Henley in the Diamond Sculls, this historic event that we've had here. So many amazing, famous names on that trophy, and his is already there, and he's wanting to put it on the trophy again for a second consecutive year. The reigning world champion. Look at that composure and relaxation as he propels the boat through the middle of the course. I
mean, these are great pictures. These are what you want to watch as an athlete, you know, studying this sport. This is a really brilliant example of how you can scull. I mean, both athletes put on good performance on this course. But Oliver Zeidler, just that extra touch of how, you know, it's very relaxed power. It's aggressive every stroke, but in such a beautiful flowing style.
And credit here to Liam Smit, who has competed at under-23 internationally on several occasions, so he's a pretty experienced international athlete. Struggling a little bit, both of them, in the middle of this water. We call it the Badlands, and you can see it is very swirly, both boats kind of rocking around a little bit. One of the things, I guess, Kath, with the single is you can't compare their oars with anybody else, so you don't know how in time or out of time they are, really. They're just doing it in their own time. That's also one of the things I always find challenging about single. You're on your own. There's something a bit about being alongside other people who are depending on you that makes sure you stay on it mentally. When you're on your own, it's a different ball game, isn't it?
It is. It's a very different sport, single sculling, somehow. But I think when I did it, what you experienced is actually between the competition. There's an incredible sort of they're really connected because you are alone in the boat. There's an amazing mutual respect between all the countries, all the athletes that compete against each other. So yes, ferocious competition on the water, but off the water, there's a real camaraderie because I think you know that. Effectively, those are your other teammates, even if they're your opposition.
Yeah, the camaraderie of the scullers who share the pain and the solitude of being in the single so much. The rest of the sport is so much about cohesion and teamwork as a team, and there's something quite different, I think, about that single sculling boat. Not all of us can make that transition. So here is the back of the University of British Columbia shirt, worn by Liam Smit, 22 years of age, under 23 experience under his belt, but he's up against the world champion. 7th place in Tokyo, Zeidler, who had a slightly disappointing Olympics in Tokyo. Struggled a bit there to cope with the rough water. Here, he's doing pretty well with the rough water.
Yeah, and I these sort of angles from behind, you just see the breadth of his shoulders. You know, again, like you said, it's quite a swimmer's physique that we're seeing. And that's a lot of, in a very, very narrow boat that sits underneath him, you just see how much control he has over that craft.
Yeah, I've heard people sort of say, well, he looks like he rows quite short, right? Because, you know, he doesn't really have to overextend himself, but his stroke length is probably longer than most of us could muster. He's really rowing within himself, and I think that's one of his advantages. He's not having to overextend, and he can apply that power in the middle of the range where the rest of us have to really stretch for it. He says, gesticulating his arm and nearly knocking over Kath Granger. Apologies. So here we are, coming through the enclosures. Ollie Zeidler from Frankfurter Gesellschaft Germania, here coming to Henley, one of his favourite places to race, and from British Columbia behind him, Smit, you can see, is still going hell for leather to try to get back on Zeidler. Zeidler now in real control, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and he'll be getting a really warm reception from the crowd because they understand what they're seeing. They are seeing a really class act in that event, and single sculling come down only a few feet in front of them. So it's a really great spectacle to witness.
So Oliver Zeidler, comfortably, calmly controlled, even through the tough conditions in the middle of the race. And we're delighted to see him back at Henley, the reigning Diamonds champion, reigning world men's champion in the single scull. And, well, pretty good row there from Tim Smit, I think, to get that close to the world champion. Pretty good, eh? Well done, Oliver Zeidler.